Hi there, it's Linda here. And what I'm going to do today is just show you some simple methods for coaching using videos. The first method I'm going to show you is one that I use when you're trying to make sense of a situation that just didn't go as planned, that you can't quite make sense of. You know, one of those meetings or conversations where you just feel a bit bamboozled at the end of it. And there's four basic steps to this process that I'm going to walk you through. And the first step is to invite you to just take a pen and a bit of paper. And today I'm using an iPad and an Apple Pencil to do this so I can stream it to you using a video capture card onto this video. But the invitation is just pick up a pen with a bit of paper and nothing special, just squiggle. Okay, so there's my squiggle. And then the next task I'm going to ask you to do, I'm just changing my pen colour to make this nice and easy, is to start to bring to mind the situation that is confusing you or confounding you. So, and the invitation I'd like to make is if you can, this isn't necessary, but if you can, think about just bringing the situation to mind, the back of your mind. So you're not laser focusing in on the situation, you're just holding it at the back of your mind and getting a sense of how it felt, how it physically felt to be there, and at more of a sort of visceral level how it felt. So the back of our brain is about where all the animal instincts and survival and sort of gut instinct comes from. So I'm just inviting you to think about it on that level. So not thinking logically, just experiencing it in more of a felt sense. And as you hold that situation in mind and look at your image that you've squiggled in front of you, I just want you to notice if your eye is drawn to any particular place. Now, there's no right or wrong place to start this, there's just beginning. So choose a space that catches your eye and use it to capture an element of what you notice about how you're feeling. So you might notice space. So I am thinking about sitting with my 10-year-old, getting really frustrated as we battle over our multiplication. And I'm just noticing that one of the things that when I bring that to mind is the crowdedness and the sort of overwhelming nature of the kitchen table, which has got me and our little sister and all sorts of things at it. So there, I've captured space, squeezed in at the edge. I'm not going to overthink that. I'm going to move on to the next thing. So what's going on for me? So I notice this bit here, which kind of feels like a head and a shoulder, and I'm noticing tension. So I'm noticing that there's physical tension in me as I recall that example and how we were today. Again, not overthinking, just letting it pass over me. I'm going to move on to another. So, what else was going on for me there? So, there was difference. And, there's like a little overlap between me and my 10-year-old about how we learn and how we think about things. But mainly, there's her and me, and we're pulling in different directions. Yeah, so there's this little overlap and a real difference in our learning style, which creates tension and difficulty when we communicate. Yeah, so that could be a bit of a speech bubble. Yeah. So the invitation is to use the image, the squiggle that you make, to start unpacking without the pressure of thinking in a linear way some of the aspects, experiences, thoughts, spatial elements of that thing and how they relate to each other. So take your time doing this. This isn't a rushed thing. And use the space. And if something doesn't feel like it's automatically coming to mind, then, give it time. Give it a few breaths. If you're still feeling stuck, you might want to capture stuck. So what part of this drawing represents stuck for you? Yeah? It could be down here under everything else. That sense of their stuckness, just in the general sense of things. So have a play about with that. explore your story. And then the third step is to look at your image and actually turn it round, look at it from a few different angles. And what are you noticing about that? So I'm noticing about how secondary I'm thinking about space. Yeah, so space is the last thing on my mind when you look at, if that's me looking out towards my learning method and the challenges that I've got to bring in learning into our conversation. Space is right at the back of my mind and I'm pretty much ignoring it. That feels pretty resonant and true for me. Quite often away in my head and not in the present. I'm noticing the tension in my shoulders, and that when I'm tense, I tend to not do a good job. I'm noticing the real difference in our perspectives, but in this morning it just felt stuck and wrong. I was often telling her, no, you need to do it differently. And there's a huge zone of difference in her approach that I'm really not exploring and turning myself around to. Whenever I do this, I always think I'm giving a funny example or just an offhand example, and I always end up coaching myself. So that's step 3. What are you noticing? Now, step 4, let that percolate for a moment. Just take a breath. What feels possible from here? And I don't mean a great big, she just needs to change her mind and I have to completely reorientate myself and we have to redesign the space or find a new space. We're not talking on that level. I'm asking you to notice what is one step better. So from this situation that I have mapped out, what's one step better? And the one that's feeling really significant to me is if I were to turn around and pay attention to that space, what might be possible? So that is something that feels really possible, really within my control. If I attended to the space, I wonder what would happen about my tension levels. I wonder what would happen. I'm curious about how her response to me might change and what feels possible if we started to open up space to explore both of our approaches to working. So I'm just going to go and thinking, well, tidy that kitchen table. And in the morning, make sure it's set up for learning and an open space as opposed to the thing that's currently holding all my bills, bits of our sister's Lego and all that sort of stuff. We're going to clear the space so that we've got a fresh start for Monday. So in your process, what's the one step to better that you could take? And that's the process. So step 1, squiggle with no burden of intention, just squiggle. Step 2, bring to mind that situation that's causing you confusion, confounding, it's a bit overwhelming. Sit it in the back of your mind. Take a moment to notice how that makes you feel, where you're feeling it in your body, and some of the words that might be coming to mind or the questions. Look at the squiggle and find a place to store them. Find a space that feels like it represents them using words and pictures. Step 3, look back across it. What are you noticing about it? Look at it from a number of different angles. Step 4, what feels possible from here? If I were to invite you to explore one step to better, what could that be and how would you do it? And that's the process. Let me know how you get on, and I hope it proves to be a really useful tool.